What if I told you the wildest, weirdest, and most mind-bending sci-fi movies ever made didn't just predict the future, they invented it? The 1960s was an era of cosmic ambition, when filmmakers weren't just chasing box office gold, they were out to blow your mind and rewrite the rules of reality. Why are so many of these retro space odysseys and dystopian dramas still light years ahead of what's coming out now? Stick around, because some of the stories behind these classics are almost stranger than the movies themselves, and one of them just might change how you see the entire genre. We're going to catch up. Planet of the Apes, 1968. Picture this. It's the late 60s. Vietnam and civil rights are all over the news, and Hollywood drops a movie where humans aren't just fighting apes, they're getting outsmarted and outclassed on their own ruined turf. Planet of the Apes isn't just an adventure, it's a full-throttle gut punch disguised as popcorn fun. Charlton Heston's Taylor spits sand, curses the sky, and battles gorillas on horseback, all while the audience wonders just how far humanity can fall. But what really made people lose their minds? That ending. The Statue of Liberty, half buried and forgotten, says more in one shot than 1,000 monologues ever could. The genius is in the details. Legendary makeup artists turned actors into convincing chimps, orangutans, and gorillas without a whiff of computer effects. Underneath the prosthetics, Rod Serling's razor-sharp script loaded every scene with jabs at race, religion, and Cold War paranoia. The movie launched 4 sequels, a TV show, and an endless parade of reboots, but nothing comes close to the raw, rebellious spirit of the original. If you think this is just monkey business, think again. Planet of the Apes didn't just change sci-fi. It dared everyone to look in the mirror and ask, what if we're the problem? Fantastic Voyage, 1966. Shrink a submarine, inject it into a human, and let the wildest field trip ever begin. Fantastic Voyage is the ultimate sci-fi trip inside the human body, decades before CGI and cheesy animation made everything look fake. In the middle of the Cold War, Hollywood figured the only way to save a diplomat's life was to send a crew of miniaturized scientists through his bloodstream, dodging antibodies, white blood cells, and near certain doom. The production was an engineering miracle. Designers built massive, pulsating sets filled with colored liquid, representing arteries and veins on a scale never seen before. The effects team pumped over 8,000 gallons of tinted water through transparent tubes to make the circulatory system look alien and beautiful. The actors spent hours crawling through claustrophobic tunnels, fighting against time and each other. Isaac Asimov, sci-fi legend, was hired to novelize the movie and ended up fixing more than a few of the film's science blunders. When his book hit shelves before the movie, audiences thought the film was based on his work, not the other way around. Fantastic Voyage won Oscars for visual effects and art direction, and it influenced everything from cartoons to medical documentaries. At its core, this movie isn't just about the race against time, it's about seeing the world in a completely new way, down to the last cell. Barbarella, 1968. Get ready for pure space-age spectacle. Barbarella is the movie that dared to make sci-fi psychedelic, surreal, and completely unapologetic. Jane Fonda floats onto the screen in zero gravity. Every set is a fever dream, and every costume looks like it was made for an intergalactic fashion show. Directed by Roger Vadim, Barbarella is equal parts space adventure and cheeky send-up of every sci-fi cliché you can imagine. Fonda's Barbarella isn't just the hero, she's a walking rebellion against buttoned-up heroes and stilted scripts. The film's budget was poured into Mario Garbuglia's wild set designs, with over 80 distinct environments and gadgets that still make Star Wars look tame. Costumer Paco Rabanne didn't use fabric, he used plastic, metal, and whatever weird material he could find. Every frame pops with color, style, and attitude. Critics panned it at first, missing the joke entirely, but fans turned it into a cult legend. Even music videos and pop stars steal from its wild energy. The excessive machine, the wild villain Duran Duran, they became part of pop culture's DNA. Barbarella proved that sci-fi could be wild, campy, and fun without apologizing for it. In a genre obsessed with darkness, this movie dared to throw a disco ball into space and dance under it. Journey to the Seventh Planet, 1962. Ready for a trip that's weirder than any rocket ride you've ever seen? Journey to the Seventh Planet blasts off with a United Nations space crew heading to Uranus. But this is no ordinary exploration mission. The planet they find is a fever dream. Landscapes, creatures, and even women pulled straight from their subconscious fears and fantasies. The movie doesn't just lean into its bizarre premise, it jumps in headfirst, conjuring up spider monsters, mind control, and scenes that feel like someone spiked the spaceship rations. This film is pure 1960s drive-in magic, where imagination punches above its budget. The sets are ambitious, the monsters are wild, and every twist feels like it was written in a waking dream. Director Sidney Pink fills the movie with surreal sequences that alternate between eerie and downright bonkers. The science may be questionable, but the sense of adventure never lets up. American star John Agar leads the mission, bringing his usual B-movie swagger to a world that's both otherworldly and somehow familiar. What sets Journey to the Seventh Planet apart is its willingness to get weird and stay weird. The film's exploration of fears, memories, and the subconscious foreshadowed more serious movies to come, but here, it's all served up with neon colors and pulp energy. Critics didn't know what to make of it, but cult audiences have championed its psychedelic style and monster mayhem ever since. If you want a movie that embraces the wild unknown of the 60s, set your sights on Uranus. You've never seen sci-fi like this. Robinson Crusoe on Mars 1964. Imagine being stranded on a planet with nothing but a monkey for company, your air running out, and your only hope for survival is pure grit and a little NASA-level creativity. Robinson Crusoe on Mars turns this nightmare into one of the decade's most underrated adventures. Long before Hollywood figured out how to make Mars look cool, director Byron Haskin shot in the scorching Death Valley, using orange filters and real landscapes to create an alien world that felt totally believable. The story follows astronaut Kit Draper, whose ship crashes, leaving him to battle thirst, hunger, and crushing loneliness. Every obstacle feels like life or death. Even the smallest victories, finding oxygen, melting ice for water, are thrilling. But what really sets this movie apart is its devotion to realism. NASA scientists consulted on survival strategies, and the practical effects, from the alien spaceship to the rover vehicles, are refreshingly hands-on, not a miniature in sight. Paul Manti, the lead, did most of his own stunts in a real suffocating spacesuit while desert temperatures soared. The film flopped on release, but found an unlikely fan base in real astronauts and scientists. Apollo 12's Pete Conrad kept a copy at NASA for worst-case scenario drills. Forget Martian blockbusters with wisecracking botanists. Robinson Crusoe on Mars is pure, no-nonsense survival, showing you just how hard and how awe-inspiring it would be to fight for life on another world. Quatermass in the Pit, 1967. Talk about a movie that doesn't just push boundaries, it vaporizes them. Quatermass in the Pit, known as 5 Million Years to Earth in the US, starts with a simple discovery: a buried spacecraft under London. What follows is a mind-bending ride through ancient aliens, human evolution, and psychic horror. Scientists dig up fossilized insect-like creatures, only to realize they predate, and maybe created, humanity itself. Cue the chaos, mass hysteria, telekinetic episodes, and a climax where a giant Martian apparition hovers over a panicked city. Hammer Films managed all this on a shoestring budget, but made every penny count. Director Roy Ward Baker used clever practical effects and double exposure to pull off sequences that still make modern audiences squirm. The BBC initially refused to adapt the story, fearing it was too scary for theaters, which honestly just gave it even more street cred. The plot's influence is everywhere. John Carpenter borrowed its Ancient Aliens vibe for Prince of Darkness, and Indiana Jones fans will recognize shades of the Martian ghost effect. This isn't just another monster in the basement flick. It's a smart, freaky deep dive into what it means to be human. If you're ready to have your brain scrambled and your sci-fi expectations exploded, this is the one to watch. The Time Travelers, 1964. If you think time travel is all shiny gadgets and paradoxes, The Time Travelers is here to blast you straight into B-movie brilliance. This is the film where a group of American scientists invent a window to the future, only to step through and land smack in the middle of a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Mutants roam, society has collapsed, and the survivors are building a rocket underground. It's cheesy, wild, and weirdly ahead of its time. What sets The Time Travelers apart isn't just its ambition on a shoestring budget, it's the sheer creativity on display. The portal to the future is a wall of light, a lo-fi special effect that somehow feels more magical than most modern CGI. Inside, the movie throws everything at the audience: android assembly lines, mutated monsters, and a society so desperate that even time itself is running out. The film's practical effects are delightfully hands-on, with plenty of model rockets and rubber-suited creatures. Director Ib Melchior keeps things moving at a breakneck pace, never letting the audience catch its breath or overthink the plot holes. The best part? The Time Travelers is a time loop story before that was cool, ending on a clever cyclical twist that leaves you questioning everything you just saw. It's been remade, referenced, and even riffed on by MST3K, but the original holds up as a testament to what creative filmmakers can do with more passion than money. If you want a film that's pure, unfiltered 1960s sci-fi energy, mad, inventive, and never dull, this is the time machine you want to step into. Village of the Giants, 1965. Think the 60s couldn't get any wilder? Village of the Giants proves you wrong before the opening credits finish. This American cult classic isn't just a sci-fi movie, it's a full-blown psychedelic rampage where giant teenagers take over a small town and chaos erupts on every block. The setup is bonkers. A teen genius invents goo, a mysterious substance that causes anything, ducks, dogs, and of course, local troublemakers, to grow to monstrous size. Next thing you know, the high school rebels are towering over houses, dancing in slow motion, and holding the adults hostage in a world that suddenly looks pint-sized. It's equal parts comedy, camp, and teenage wish fulfillment, served up with some of the most delightfully ridiculous effects of the decade. You get oversized props, split-screen trickery, and practical gags that are so charmingly fake, they loop back around to awesome. The cast is a who's who of up-and-coming stars, including Beau Bridges, Ron Howard, and Tommy Kirk, all delivering performances that are more fun than serious. What makes Village of the Giants stand out is its boldness. It's not afraid to be goofy, and it leans into its premise with zero apologies. The movie is filled with wild dance numbers, animal antics, and a soundtrack that's pure 60s pop bliss. Critics were baffled at the time, but today, it's celebrated as a cult gem that never takes itself too seriously. If you're in the mood for science gone hilariously off the rails, Village of the Giants will make you feel like a kid again, just a much, much bigger one. Fahrenheit 451, 1966. Take away people's books, their history, their stories. What's left? That's the terrifying question at the heart of François Truffaut's Fahrenheit 451. A sharp, stylish adaptation of Ray Bradbury's classic novel. In this future, firemen don't put out fires, they burn books, and anyone who dares to read them is an enemy of the state. Oscar Werner plays Montag, the conflicted fireman who starts to question everything after meeting the spirited Clarice, played by Julie Christie in a double role as both his wife and his conscience. The film's visuals are haunting. Opening credits are spoken, not written, immersing you in a world where reading is forbidden. Truffaut, who barely spoke English, communicated with his cast through translators, resulting in moments of awkward, authentic tension. Bernard Herrmann's eerie, percussionless score amplifies the sense of emptiness and dread. Fahrenheit 451 wasn't just a warning, it inspired real-life book lovers to memorize literature in defiance of censorship. Critics were split at first, but the film's impact only grew with time. It's a masterclass in visual storytelling and a reminder of how easily freedoms can be lost. In a decade packed with nuclear fears and space fantasies, Fahrenheit 451 stands out for its quiet, chilling realism. If you think dystopian futures are just a modern trend, this movie proves they were always lurking around the corner. The First Men in the Moon, 1964. Before the real Apollo missions ever left Earth, the first men in the moon took audiences on an out-of-this-world journey and did it with flair only the 1960s could provide. Adapted from H.G. Wells's classic, this film doesn't just settle for a rocket launch and a few craters. Instead, it imagines a Victorian Britain that beats everyone to the moon thanks to an eccentric inventor and his anti-gravity Cavorite. The opening is brilliant. Astronauts arrive, expecting to make history, only to find a faded British flag and a note saying, "Been there, done that." But the real jaw-dropper is Ray Harryhausen's stop-motion magic. He brings to life a world of moon caves, crystal tunnels, and giant bug-eyed selenites. Every frame pops with detail, making the lunar underground both beautiful and deeply weird. This is hands-on, analog movie magic, no digital cheats. When it first came out, critics shrugged it off as a kid's fantasy, missing just how influential those glowing lunar vistas would be. James Cameron even credits its bioluminescent landscapes as direct inspiration for Avatar decades later. Shot on a budget that would barely buy you a spaceship model today, First Men in the Moon proves you don't need endless cash to make real movie wonder. It's a lunar leap for adventure, and a film that reminds us imagination always gets there first. The Last Man on Earth, 1964. Imagine wandering empty streets, your only company the distant groans of the infected, and your biggest fear is the sunset. That's The Last Man on Earth, a moody, haunting classic that redefined both sci-fi and horror with just one man and a lot of silence. Vincent Price is unforgettable as Dr. Robert Morgan, the sole survivor of a global plague that's wiped out humanity and left behind vampire-like monsters. By day, he methodically hunts them. By night, he barricades himself and waits for dawn. Shot in the deserted outskirts of Rome, the film's lonely wide shots and echoing quiet make the apocalypse feel heartbreakingly real. It's not just about monsters, it's about isolation, grief, and what's left of a person when the world falls apart. The production was as fraught as the story, with Italian and American crews constantly clashing, and Price calling it the hardest shoot of his career. Yet out of that chaos came a film that inspired an entire genre. George Romero openly credited it as the blueprint for Night of the Living Dead, and you can see its DNA in every modern zombie tale. The Last Man on Earth doesn't just survive, it endures, teaching us the scariest apocalypse isn't monsters, but being truly alone. Voyage to the End of the Universe, 1963, Ikari XB1. Before 2001, A Space Odyssey changed the game. A little-known Czechoslovakian gem called Voyage to the End of the Universe. Originally, Ikari XB1 was already redefining what space on screen could look like. Forget clunky sets and stiff acting. This film serves up minimalist white corridors, touchscreen controls, and a multicultural spaceship crew that feels futuristic even by today's standards. The story: the crew of the Ikari embarks on a 15-year journey to a distant star. But what starts as scientific optimism quickly turns into a psychological slow burn. The weight of time, the pull of old memories, and a creeping sense of cosmic dread all are woven into the trip. Real astronomers consulted on the science, so everything from the effects of weightlessness to the dangers of radiation feels eerily plausible. Kubrick reportedly watched this film multiple times before making 2001, borrowing its visual ideas and meditative tone. In the West, it was cut up and awkwardly dubbed, but its restored version reveals a quiet masterpiece. Its anti-nuclear themes were bold for the Cold War era, and its ending is the kind that stays with you long after the credits roll. Voyage to the End of the Universe isn't just a curiosity, it's a lost milestone that helped map out the real future of sci-fi. X, The Man with the X-Ray Eyes, 1963. You think you've seen everything? Roger Corman's X, The Man with the X-Ray Eyes, is here to prove you wrong, then dares you to look even deeper. Dr. James Xavier, played with haunted brilliance by Ray Milland, invents a serum that gives him true X-ray vision. At first, it's groundbreaking. He diagnoses illnesses no other doctor can spot and becomes a medical marvel. But with every layer he sees through, the world grows darker. Soon, Xavier's gift turns into a nightmare. He can't stop seeing through flesh, through bone, and finally, past the boundaries of reality itself. Corman's direction is electric, pushing 1960s special effects as far as they could go. Painted models, refracted lighting, and trippy optical tricks make Xavier's visions both fascinating and terrifying. Milland wore painful custom contacts for the role. He was nearly blinded during filming just to nail that wild-eyed look of torment. The pace never lets up, balancing B-movie thrills with a gnawing sense of existential dread. By the climax, Xavier is driven to madness by what he sees, a universe that isn't meant for human eyes. There's even an urban legend that the movie's original ending was so disturbing, executives forced Corman to tone it down. Whether or not that's true, the finale remains unforgettable, raising the question, what if the biggest danger isn't what's out there, but what you're suddenly able to see? X isn't just a sci-fi shocker. It's a cautionary tale about pushing too far, about curiosity gone rogue. Sometimes the real terror is in opening your eyes and finding a truth you can't ever unsee. That's a vision you'll never shake. The Day the Earth Caught Fire, 1961. Ready for a dose of pure apocalypse? The Day the Earth Caught Fire isn't just a disaster movie. It's a blistering, all-too-plausible look at how civilization could scorch itself into oblivion and fast. The premise is chillingly simple. World powers set off simultaneous nuclear tests, and the Earth is knocked off its axis, sending the planet hurtling closer to the sun. Suddenly, global catastrophe isn't a theory, it's a countdown. But the real genius of this British classic is in the execution. Instead of focusing on politicians or scientists, the story zeroes in on London's scrappy Fleet Street reporters as they chase rumors, dig for facts, and watch their city transform into a sun-baked wasteland. Director Val Guest insisted on realism, shooting in real newspaper offices, casting actual journalists as extras, and even spray painting Trafalgar Square to capture that bone-dry, end-of-the-world look. Yellow filters and scorched sets give the whole film a feverish, heat-wave vibe that never lets up. And then there's the ending, a legendary twist in sci-fi cinema. As the world teeters on the edge, two headlines are printed: World Saved and World Doomed. But the audience never learns which one goes out. People return to theaters again and again, convinced they'd seen a different outcome each time. What makes this film timeless isn't just the suspense or the special effects, but its white-hot urgency, a warning that sometimes the biggest threat isn't from outer space, but from ourselves. The Day the Earth Caught Fire is pure, red-hot caution, and still stands as one of the smartest, most realistic disaster movies ever made. So, which 1960s sci-fi masterpiece just rocketed to the top of your must-watch list? Did a forgotten moon adventure grab your imagination, or are you itching to revisit a psychedelic cult classic? These films didn't just predict the future, they created it, with guts, genius, and zero apologies. Drop your pick in the comments and tell us which one still blows your mind. And don't forget, subscribe, share, and join us for the next wild ride through cinema's hidden treasures. Who knows what forgotten world we'll explore next?